Hi, good evening. Welcome to the Jon Gaunt show. 6:30 today. Football's on later. The mighty Sky Blues are playing. Right, let me tell you what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about Jess Phillips. I want to talk about Starmer. I believe, and a lot of people seem to agree with me, that Labour has abandoned the abused girls, the northern girls, the girls who were raped and sexually abused. I'll tell you why in a moment. But wasn't it ironic today that Keir Starmer was bragging, and he should do, it's a great thing to pull off, this new universal studio that's going to open in Bedfordshire. It'll be great for Bedfordshire, great for Luton, great for the country. However, it may as well have been Disney World because we've got a Mickey Mouse government. Yesterday, they announced that they're not going to have the 5 separate inquiries into this historic, well, it's not historic, it's still going on, this sexual abuse of white girls predominantly by predominantly Muslim Pakistani men. Why won't they treat this seriously? And let me just tell you before you get ranting and raving, it isn't just Labour. The Tories had at least 14 years where they could have sorted it out. They did sweet FA. I know Kemi now is saying she wants a full public inquiry, but that's because she's in opposition and she knows she'll score a few political points. Nobody should be scoring political points over the tragedy of what happened in Rotherham, Huddersfield, Stoke-on-Trent, Coventry, Birmingham. Of course, not London, because according to the mayor in London, there's been no sexual gangs. What a load of garbage. But the bottom line is the whole of our political class seems to be in denial over this issue. But Labour went to a new low yesterday. You'll remember that everybody was calling for a public inquiry. They said there's no need for one. We've already had one. Yes, but the Tories didn't implement it. And that was an inquiry into paedophilia in general, because it seems we are plagued by this dreadful, the worst crime ever all over the UK. Scouts, churches, Catholic churches, Protestant churches, the Sally Army, everywhere, schools. But the northern towns, they're not really the northern towns, are they? You couldn't call Reading a northern town, or Telford, or Coventry, or Birmingham. They're in the Midlands. But this filth has been going on everywhere, and the establishment class have turned a blind eye to it, or thought the girls deserved it, or thought they were prostitutes. Well, of course, they can't be prostitutes if they're under the age of 16. It's a stain on the whole of our nation. It's an absolute disgrace. It's been going on for at least 40 years, and the establishment, whichever party you support, have not sorted it out. If you want to comment, please now comment on my thing. I'm going to do a few off my Twitter account from earlier. It says here, this is what I wrote earlier. I'm so angry that Starmer and Jess Phillips can abuse, and I use that word deliberately, these young girls again by denying them a public inquiry, and then they've denied them the local ones into the rape gangs. To do this on the last day that Parliament was sitting was also cowardly and disgraceful. What are they hiding? And why aren't the MSM, the mainstream media, all over this? Just in case you don't know what happened yesterday, Jess Phillips stood up in Parliament and basically said, we're not going to have these individual inquiries now. I think it was Oldham, wasn't it? There was going to be 5 towns. Everybody was massively upset about this. Charlie Peters, the man who's done more than anyone to expose what's been going on GB News. He's done a great job, that young lad. But he was amazed because they wanted to do 5 inquiries. That's what Labour suggested, rather than another public inquiry. They thought it would get to it quicker. Yesterday, on the last day before they go off on their 2 or 3 week holiday, Jess Phillips, who has done lots, to be fair, to look after these women, she stood up and she said, we're not doing that anymore. It was all fancy words because we were not meant to notice. They're no longer having the individual inquiries. They're not having the big inquiry. And I tell you what, that makes you think, well, is it a cover-up? What are they covering up? And in a sense, it's worse. because not knowing leaves the field open to the conspiracy theorists. It certainly makes me think, what's that smell? And it isn't just the rubbish in her constituency. She's a disgrace. Starmer's a disgrace. And we've got a Mickey Mouse government. Let's just turn the whole country into a theme park because we've got nothing of value left. We've got rid of all, and I'm blaming the whole political class for this. We've got rid of all our industries. We don't make anything. We're the laughing stock of the world. And we've got a man who struts about as if he's a genius, as if he's a world statesman. He's a pathetic creep. And he's not looking after these girls. He is not. And I wonder why. And not just him. I look at the Conservative benches and say, what's going on there? Where's Nick Brown, the ex-Labour minister? Bloke arrested last week. Don't mention him because it's an active case. But he was an MP, or is an MP as well, for alleged child abuse. What is going on in the corridors of power? Are they all up to it? What's it about? I want your views. And of course, people are saying it's gerrymandering effectively, that what they're worried about, Labour in particular, although I think you could probably put this into the Conservatives, is that those individual pro-Palestine supporters and candidates and Muslim, got to say they're Muslim, they'll stand and they might take votes off Labour in particular. Labour are going to get absolutely hammered in a couple of weeks' time in the local elections. We all know that. All the polls are saying that. And let me just remind you that it's just a statement of fact this. Jess Phillips had a particularly difficult general election campaign because the bloke she was up against was a real, what you'd call a militant, I guess. They even disturbed the count. They started shouting abuse and insults at her. She didn't complain because she knows she can't, because she can't afford to upset that subsection of her constituency, Muslim people. I'm not saying all Muslims would get upset, because of course they wouldn't, and not all of them support Palestine, and not all of them are extremists, obviously. But we are getting sectarian politics in this country based on religious grounds. It's so dangerous. It's so incredibly dangerous, and it needs to be stamped on. There's no reason why an MP cannot be a Muslim, a Hindu, a Sikh, a Jew, whatever religion, a Christian even. There'd be a change. No, but you understand what I'm saying. But what you can't have is MPs just really drilling down on one religion. That's how you end up with the Birmingham MP this week or last week saying he wanted us to fund a brand new airport. Good idea. We're just given the go-ahead to expand Luton. Yeah, but wait till I tell you this airport is in Pakistan. And his justification was, well, a lot of his constituents come from there and it would make life easier. I'm paraphrasing him, but that's basically what he thought. It was okay to stand up in the Houses of Parliament and say, can we fund a new airport? We haven't got enough money to give old age pensioners their money. Starmer's stolen it off them. And then, of course, you've also got the other Muslim MP who stood up and said he wanted effectively a new blasphemy law, that no one should be able to slag off or burn a holy book of any religion. No, you should be able to show whatever or say whatever you want about any religion. It's called free speech. And I'm telling you, free speech is under massive attack in this country. And not just from the fanatical Muslims on that level, but lots of people. And we've got to get on top of this. And today, again, he's played the card. Look, there he is. There's Starmer. He's being cowardly again because he should have stood up to these people. Not only that, we should have a full public inquiry. Thousands, some experts are saying tens of thousands of girls have been abused by these people over this long period. And then, of course, just to make it worse, nobody gets deported. Even when they get found guilty, the Rotherham attackers are still in this country. One of them's an Uber driver. Another one is a food delivery person. How can that be right? They've got dual citizenship. take the British one off them and send them out of the country. And Jess Phillips, as I say, I don't particularly like her myself, but you've got to say she has been one of the people who have been standing up for women's rights. But why did she do that yesterday? Who told her to do that? I mean, Alan Thornbury here on Twitter, I'm coming to your comments in a moment. She's been a good little girl and she's doing what she's been told to do. Otherwise, she'll lose thousands from being a minister. Now we know they're not serious about misogyny and tackling it. Yeah, in light, I guess you're alluding to, of the film, the series we were talking about last week, Adolescence. Although I would just say all those people who say it should have been a black person because they do most of the stabbing, which isn't factually correct. But anyway, what do you make of what happened in Leicester? That poor old Asian chap got kicked to death and stabbed by two people, a girl 13 or 14 and a boy 13. I might have gone around the wrong way. And they were racist. So they haven't said, but I'm presuming they're white. So it does happen. It does happen. And that's why that program was so important. But let's not get diverted into that. Yes. Let's carry on where we are now for the moment. Got to say as well, the Conservative MP, Katie Lamb, she stood up and she had a right pop yesterday at Labour and at Keir Starmer and at Jess Phillips. She put the ugly truth to Parliament and she desperately needed honesty about the rape gangs. Chris Webb says on Twitter, Jess Phillips and Labour are now 100% playing a race card in detriment to white young girls. Labour are playing racial politics. Well, they all are, and that's the problem. They're so desperate to keep their snouts in the trough, both the Tories and Labour, they'll do anything to get elected. But how despicable. These girls got abused, got raped, weren't believed when they told people, or if they were believed, they were called slags or sluts. And then later in life, say 15, 20, 30 years later, that, like all abuse victims, they've come forward again and they're not believed again. And then there's an inquiry where there's about 4 pages on these gangs who are doing it on an industrial scale, right? But then they asked for a public inquiry. No, says Starmer. No, says Jess Phillips. And the Tories didn't really stand up for it, although Kemi now is saying she'd give one, but I think she's playing politics. They were abandoned again. And I use the word abused. They have been abused again by Starmer, Labour and Jess Phillips, because fancy saying on the day before Parliament broke up, so none of them were there. Most of the self-serving pigs had already got home on their first-class train tickets. Nobody was there to debate it. I think it's terrible. I want to know your views. This is the Jon Gaunt Show. If you want to follow me, do. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. And, of course, I'm on YouTube as well. You can always listen back later. You can also get it on podcasts, audio version, anywhere you normally get your podcasts. Thank you very much. Let's take some calls. Soon, John, soon. Peter 2704 says too many votes to be lost, I think, John. So he thinks it's basically gerrymandering. And this is just so scary. Where does this finish? And imagine if this was round the other way. If these were white gangs doing this to predominantly Muslim ladies, what would happen? There'd be bloodshed on the street, but it also, politically, it would never be dropped. Every debate would be about this. Now, don't get me wrong. Starmer deserved a moment in the sunlight today, pulling off that deal with, although it's the people who own Sly News, did you know that, who are doing the development, Conquest or whatever they're called. However, it is brilliant for Bedfordshire. I know that area where the old brickworks were. I broadcast there for 7 years or 6 years, something like that. It needs it. The investment will be brilliant. I hope it goes well. But as I said earlier, first thing this morning, it should be Disney because we're run by a Mickey Mouse government. In fact, they're not even that good. And today, did you see a speech to all the kids? The bloke is pathetic. Let's take some views. Cooper made the announcement 45 minutes before Parliament went into recess. It's unbelievable. Yeah, Yvette Cooper, she should be in the frame too. You're right. She's the Home Secretary. Evening, John. What a joke this is. And to announce it 45 minutes before the government broke up for Easter holidays, this is because they don't have to answer questions, says Steve on YouTube. You're right. It's an abuse of our democratic system. That's what's going on here. It's an absolute abuse. We already know that the postal vote system is abused left, right, and centre. And if you want sectarian ethnic voting in this country, you need your head testing. Now, I know we've got to make it easy for everybody to vote and everyone to have a say in our parliamentary democracy. Of course, that's important. But we cannot have this kind of appeasement. And this is what it is. And I'm pretty sure decent Muslim people would agree with me. These men are criminals. These men are foul, the foulest of foul criminals, raping young girls. And when we talk about rape, we're not just talking about vaginal rape. I don't want to go too deep, but you know what I mean? It's all sorts of rape. It's disgraceful. Tom says there's too many votes and jobs to lose. You mean the MP's jobs? You're probably right, my friend. But what a dangerous situation we're in. Simon Hatt, I'd ask, what have they got to hide? Well, that's kind of where I'm getting to. I don't really understand Labour. And I see, what I said earlier, even if they're not hiding anything, by acting like this, in this manner, it makes people think, well, maybe they haven't changed. Because remember, it was Labour MPs who wanted to legalise, effectively, paedophiles. They supported the paedophile information exchange back in the 70s. And not just fringe people, top Labour people, Patricia Hewitt, for example. So it makes people think, well, have they not changed? Are they still stupid? Are they still thinking being gay is the same as being a paedophile, which, of course, it isn't? Yes? I don't know. But it's odd, isn't it? Why didn't they want a full, independent, public inquiry? And by the way, I don't want you just thinking it's just Labour. It can't be, can it? If the rest of the country thinks, look, we've got to now get on and have a full public inquiry, I take on board we did have an inquiry into paedophilia in general, but we have not really addressed it. And then when they picked 5 towns, one of them being Oldham, people were saying, well, you can't just pick 5 places. It was happening on such a massive scale. Anyway, back to Simon Hatt. He says, hey, I'd ask, what have they got to hide? Look how fond Stalin, I think he means Starmer, is of flouting the old, I was the chief prosecutor. Yeah, he loves that line, doesn't he? If he did such a good job, then why isn't he seeking legal profession peer approval? That's a good point, Simon. By not having an inquiry, it's the same as the non-release of information following immediately after the Southport attack. Well, that's going to come back and bite him on the bottom, isn't it, as well? People will gossip and follow the rumour mill in the vacuum of no official information. Simon, that is an excellent comment. Thank you for making it, because that is the point. But look at that. Look what's happening with Alex Rudibicano. What they're doing with him. They're having an inquiry into that, yeah? But they're not having an inquiry into the bit that we're really in. I mean, we all know that Prevent are as much use as a chocolate fireguard, and they missed 3 opportunities to lock up and effectively throw away the key on the Southport Slayer. They lost and didn't do it. Prevent needs to be closed down. Now, the bloke who was in charge of it, he's having to fall on his sword. However, the bit that they're not even going to question in that particular inquiry is, why didn't Starmer and Yvette Cooper tell us on the very day the attack happened, which is when they would have known? And by the way, I said this on the day. I said he would have known. When the Secret Services and the police would have been straight round his house. They'd have found the manual immediately, right? They would have also, the terrorist manual, they would have also found out what he'd been looking at on his computer, and they would have found the fact that he was making rice in his bedroom and that he was obsessed. In fact, there were some people on Twitter, I remember on that day, saying that some people had put up, he'd said to one of his classmates, what we need in Britain is a Rwanda-style genocide, which, of course, is where he's from. Now, Starmer, when everybody was getting worked up and saying it's a new person, it's a boat person, it's an illegal immigrant, he could have said, no, it's not. I can't tell you who it is. technically this person is a boy, so we can't give you his name. Leave it with us. We are looking into it, right? Oh, and by the way, we found some rice in, and it looks like now it's terror. They told us for months it wasn't terror. And then eventually they did tell us, right? But then they said they couldn't tell us before because if people had spoken about it, it was contempt of court. And then when it all blew up and we had the woman being sent to prison and someone, that was GB News. More people are in prison, right? Are in prison in that town for nasty things they've said on Facebook and Twitter than are for abusing the kids, the girls. That don't add up to me. That is two-tier justice. We're living in two-tier Britain. Chopper, considering Starmer once let off Jimmy Savile, you see, again, that's not technically true. He didn't. He says Jimmy Savile never came over his desk. The case, never came over his desk. The inquiry and the investigations need to start from the top down. They won't. They never do. Craig, I don't know what you're talking about, but stay on the agenda. He's saying Trump's blinked, Gaunty. I don't know what you're on about, mate. I've been preparing my show. What's next? They care more about votes than vulnerable white girls. Worst government in history. Do you know what? I don't think they care about any girls, if I'm honest with you. They make a big show of this misogyny. It's their latest buzzword, isn't it? Right? But it's like everything. It's all just words. And words are all I have. They don't actually solve anything. And I'm not just getting at them. Conservatives are just as bad. Your views, please. Gruner on YouTube says, can't upset the community. You're right. I will fund an airport deportation out one-way ticket. I think only reform can turn this country around, says Mick. For instance, I know where you're coming from, Mick, but that isn't the answer, is it? The answer is to find out why these things are happening. And the answer is then, as our top politicians and our police officers, to control the situation and stop it happening and to protect the victims. That's what needs to happen in this country. But they never do. They say, this is the worse than normal. Normally, we'll have an inquiry, and at the end of the inquiry, the last line in all of those things is, and we'll make sure it never happens again. And then, as sure as eggs is eggs, it will happen again, and it does. And often, it's worse this time than it was last time. Am I right or am I wrong? Just take a pause there for me to say, look, if you want to support me and keep this going, I'd be really keen, really happy for you to buy me a beer or buy me a coffee. Very simple. There's all the people who've done it already. You'll get your name on the roll call of on. I've got to put a few more back on that I haven't had on recently. So I'll do that for you. But all you do is you go to www.buymeacoffee.com. Then you can choose. You can say, Gaunty can have a coffee or Gaunty can have a beer, right? So you can decide what you want to buy me. That's £5 a time. Most people buy 3, put 15 quid into the pot. It's a donation, and it all goes to help me carry on doing these podcasts, these videos, whatever you want to call them. Don't forget, guests coming the week after next. Hopefully, now I'm back. You can see I'm back at home. I've got my green screen up and the rest of it. So, I've had 12 days away at my roses. My daughter had a great time. I woke up this morning missing the dog. I even missing watering the seedlings. What's happening to me? I'm going soft, but I'm so angry. I'm so angry that the self-serving pigs of Westminster did what they did yesterday. They've abused these girls again. The only people that have free speech in this country are parliamentarians in Parliament, enshrined in the Bill of Rights. The rest of us do not. You're right, Simon. That's a fact. So it's down to Rupert now to do the private inquiry. It's ridiculous, this POM, on YouTube. Not same as the public, has not statutory powers, but at least he's looking into it. Now, you're talking about Rupert Lowe, aren't you? Look, Rupert, he's got his heart in the right place. But we can't be diverted by somebody saying, I'll pay for it, I'll do it. It's got to, the reason we needed a public inquiry was exactly as you just said there. It needs to have statutory rights. So if you're asked to give evidence, you have to go. If you don't, you're in prison, right? That's the only way to get to the bottom of who knew what. There must be chief constables who recently, ex-chief constables, heads of social services, other top coppers, top officials, council directors have been bricking themselves because they thought they might get caught up in this, right? Because they're guilty. They are guilty. They turned a blind eye, or they thought the girls were slappers. They were wrong, and they need to be in a dock. Just like the boss of, I said this the other day, the boss of Prevent, it's not good enough he's going to resign from his £200,000 at least job, because he'll just get another one like that. It's like social services. When babies get killed and stuff, they resign and then they turn up in Birmingham or Coventry or another authority. No. Put them in court. If they get found, it wasn't their fault, it was whatever, fine. But they'll probably get found guilty of neglect. How can they get away with it? They take the big bumper salary. The book has to stop with them. Oh, I like this one. Glyn Collis says, Gaunty. Well, you put Gauntly, but never mind. Gaunty, please don't compare Starmer to Mickey Mouse. He's Roland Rat. Yeah, that's very true. I don't know about Roland Rat. We could probably think of a better character, couldn't we? I was thinking the Wizard of Oz, the Cowardly Lion, or he could be Dick Dastardly, couldn't he? Huh? Who'd be Muttley? Hey, I've got a few people, but people are saying being sexist. Or Regina Wilson. Tories should have done this inquiry. Now they're huffing and puffing about it. Yeah, but Regina, I understand where you're coming from, but please don't get into party politics. They're all as bad as each other on this. Nobody's taking it seriously. I've had a bee in my bonnet, not just about the girls in Rotherham, Doncaster, Telford, Coventry and that, but about abuse in children's homes, in residential homes, for, how old am I now? 64. So for at least 50 years. Because I know it's gone on and it was going on. I know. That's all I'm going to say. And no one's taken it seriously. The kids have never been believed. It's an absolute disgrace. We're meant to be the civilized society, the mother of all parliaments, the seat of democracy. But our children have been getting abused. I'm ashamed to say Jess Phillips is my MP. She's following orders from above, says Henry Ives. Hi, Henry. Good to have you on board on Facebook. They're making sure their black vote from certain communities stay on side. And a Pisa is one who feeds the crocodile, hoping it will eat him last. Yeah, that's Winston Churchill. Nice one, Henry. Thank you very much indeed. Although, don't forget, that's fine. Dormston Cook. Hello, Dormston. Evening, Gaunty. I've just seen that the USA have updated their tariffs to China to 125%. China accounted by putting 84% on their tariffs. He's going to win this. I know somebody earlier said that he blinked. I don't know what they're on about because I've been preparing for this. But I think he's pulling people around. We don't need any tariffs. We need free trade. That's what you need. But anyway, I don't want to get diverted into that tonight. I want to talk about the rape gangs. I can talk about my seedlings if you want. I found out one of the seedlings. Rosie said, "Do you see the one with the big leaves? Did you wonder what that was?" So I'm going through all the vegetables, guessing. No. She says it's a fruit. I said, it can't be a bloody fruit. What do you mean a fruit? What sort of fruit? It was a watermelon. I've been nurturing watermelons. Next, I'm going to find out that the coriander isn't coriander, it's grass, if you know what I mean. John, let's be honest. This is still going on today, says Steve on YouTube. Yes, it is, Steve, and that's what's so disgusting. Girls being groomed by these men and then being abused. There is no end to it. And now the inquiry has been stopped. Then this will carry on and on and on. Steve, breaks my heart to read that, but you're absolutely right. Absolutely. We need to find out who's done it, get them in the court of law. If they're found guilty, they need to go to prison for an awful long time. I'd lock them up forever, actually. And I'd execute the ones who are using bottles and stuff. I'd execute them. And then the ones who aren't British citizens, I'm sorry, they've got to be deported as soon as their sentence is finished, if not before. Are you with me or against me? Sorry, was your daughter happy with your care of her seedling? Says Dumpster. Yeah, I got a thumbs up from my daughter. I don't think we lost any. Not any. I'm really pleased with myself. I tell you what, I've never been into gardening, but it just makes you feel better, doesn't it? Like I've been getting up at 5 a.m. as well to walk that blooming dog. And hearing the bird song and everything, it just makes you feel better. I used to walk every day, as you know. I used to walk, I don't know, 6-7 miles a day. I've fallen out of it. I'm going to fall back into it. I used to love it. Craig Urquhart. How many times do I have to tell you, Craig? I don't really want to talk about this, but hang on a minute. He's put a 90 pause on tariffs from countries that haven't responded. You mean a 90-day pause? He did that yesterday or the day before. He's still going to win. He's going to win this battle. But you believe whatever you want to believe. But let's not talk about it now. Let's get real. The reason there'll be no inquiry is because it's all linked to votes and getting elected. Yeah, well, I thought long and hard. I don't know if you've read the blurb that I've written today. Let me just see if I can find a bit of that. I don't know whether this broadcast will be repeatable, whether YouTube or the others will take it down. They shouldn't, because everything I'm saying is factual, and I'm not letting anybody say anything that's racist. But in this, I've written, in this explosive video, Jon Gaunt delves into the shocking abandonment of abused and raped girls by the Labour Party. Well, they have been abandoned, and they are abused and raped. And then I put this, they seemingly are prioritising political votes over justice. Well, seemingly, that's the conclusion I'm coming to. In the Commons yesterday, Jess Phillips' statement revealed the government's dropped it. And then I say the sexual abuse of girls predominantly by Pakistani Muslim men in UK northern cities. That's all accurate. The decision follows months of resistance to a national inquiry. That's true, despite survivors' demands for justice. Critics argue that Labour's reluctance to act stems from a fear of alienating Muslim or Palestinian voters ahead of the local elections, leading some people to suggest gerrymandering or vote rigging. Now, none of that is factually incorrect. That is what's been happening. Why didn't the Labour Party want a national inquiry? Why did the Conservative Party fail to act during their 14 years in power? And why is the political establishment so afraid of transparency? Join Gaunty as he breaks down the political fallout and discusses how the mainstream media continues to ignore this massive issue of child sexual exploitation. Now, let's see if I get a warning or pulled off for that. I shouldn't use that term, but you understand what I mean. Because we should be able to openly discuss this in a mature way. Do you agree with me? And this, again, is another reason why I need support. That's why all those coffees and those beers, and if you support me on YouTube and all of that, and if you're not yet a member of my YouTube page, please join or at least subscribe, because we need to say these are the things we want to talk about. I've looked through all the papers online today. I wouldn't buy one. And I would switch through all the channels over the breakfast period. The only channel that was talking about this was GB News. The only channel. I've had my how would I put it, with GB News, run-ins with them. I always said I wouldn't go on again. I probably would now, because I think they're being sensible. However, no mention on the BBC, no mention, I didn't even look at Channel 4, but I doubt there's any mention there. ITV, not in any of the newspapers, the Sun, the Mail, any of those papers, no. Why? Why are people not tackling this major issue in our society? Simon Hatt says, Farage promised an inquiry but folded, saying without the power to compel witnesses is pointless. He's correct. And then Simon goes on to say, now I'm from the Rupert Lowe School. Much can be read in someone being unwilling to attend the inquiry. Yes, but you can misread it as well. And unfortunately, Rupert's inquiry is the best we can hope for. Let's hope that it slings enough mud to compel the government to instigate an official inquiry. Well, it might. But I think you're getting diverted and distracted, Simon. I think we need to keep the emphasis on getting a full public inquiry. But I'll take on board your point. Craig, you're boring me. I've asked you not to carry on about Trump. We'll talk about Trump tomorrow if that's what you want. But you're boring me now, and other people want to comment on the subject in hand. Okay? You could always go and set up your own podcast and your own live interaction if you want, but please don't do things when I've told you not to. That's it, right? Do it once more and you're barred. Chop them thingamajig off, I says this Thistle. Thank you. And he says, the perpetrators I'm talking about. Evening, John. I've noticed the dollar against the pound has got stronger after the tariffs. Yeah, okay. That's the last I'm going to say on this now, Mick. You're right. And yesterday, the markets were recovering as well. I haven't looked today, but they were recovering. And I think Trump is probably going to be proved to be right in all this. Dormston, blimey, Dormston, he sent me a £19.99 super sticker on YouTube. Thank you, mate. Thank you for your support. I'll need that when they shove me in the gulag. I'll be in prison. You lot will be screaming, free the Gaunty one, whilst all the rapists and abusers are still out and about, sticking it up to all of us. Talk has been on it all day. Sorry, I don't listen to talk radio, so I'm sorry about it. I didn't know that, Simon. So, yeah, I bet they have been. Good for them. I think it's probably with that moron Mike Graham, isn't it? Have a couple of beers on me, Gaunty, says Dormston. It'd be more than a couple. In fact, I tell you what I need the money for. I'm going to, for me expansion, for me things that I need to do. I'm just looking on my Twitter because there were some other brilliant comments, which I just want to read out before finish. We're literally witnessing the fall of British civilization, in my opinion, in front of our very eyes. We've gone from William Gladstone and Robert Peel to these absolute muppets. It's well and truly game over. There's no hope left for us all. Well, that's the problem. I got into that thinking the other day, and this is still a great country. I want to save this country. I want to save it from the woke warriors, the idiots who are so liberal. They're uber liberal. They're ruining our country. They hate Britain. They hate our flag. They hate everything about us. We can't let them win, can we? And we certainly can't get to a situation. By the way, E13 Exile, that's a very good tweet. I can't read it out, but if you want to look that up, you can. And then some of this, Mark Blick says, she's vile. Anyone with morals wouldn't do it. No job is worth what she's doing. I think he's talking about Jess Phillips. I think the shame about Jess Phillips is she's done so much for abused kids. And E13 XR, have a look at that, everyone. I'm not going to say any more than that. There's a very interesting picture on that. The MSM are fully behind Labour. So is the entire establishment. It's scary stuff. They're just a few of my Twitters, right? Inquiry or not, this subject isn't going to go away anytime soon, says Laird. The truth will out. Well, it will if we keep pressurising. It will if we keep pressurising. Don't take this the wrong way, Gaunty, but we hope you don't get pulled off. You shouldn't be using that joke, but you're right. Well, I've got to hope that YouTube, they have these algorithms and they can pick up words. So today they're going to pick up the word rape. So they'll probably they won't, sometimes it's automatic, the passing, it's okay to put it out. But if you use the word rape or anything like that, it flags up a warning and then an individual has to look at it. So the replay of this will probably be later than it normally is. Thistle says the fight back is beginning. Well, it's got to, and it's got to begin at the ballot box. The problem is they're all the blooming same, aren't they? I'm just, who do you vote for? Who do you vote for? Mickey Mouse probably would get elected. I'm absolutely sure now if we had a none of the above, they'd get elected. It's just ridiculous. It's just such a ridiculous situation we're in. And there is fear. There's fear over the votes. I'm sure that's what they're worried about. But is it fear because of the violence that can be associated with the mad extremists? Was it fear that stopping the Southport Slayer? Was it fear? Was it fear that they'd be accused of being racist because he'd tried to go to school, was it 3 times with a knife? Oh, that's racist. Stop and search. It's always young black boys. Well, it's predominantly young black boys who are stabbing each other, like I said the other day. So the police have to target it. Always remember that. So Paul Condon came on my show and was on BBC London. He said if it was housebreaking, we'd be targeting white males from Essex, because he said they're most of the ones who do it in London. Not helped, of course, by the fact there were and there still are racist policemen. That doesn't mean all of them. That means some of them. It's all of these things are all mixed up in this, aren't they? But I don't think you can separate out the fact. I think she won by 624 votes and there was a recount. That must have shook up Jess Phillips, because Labour have always expected to have the Asian and the black vote. They have. That's why there was such a big fuss made of the Conservatives taking the so-called red wall, wasn't it? Because traditional voters for them turned against them and voted for the Conservatives. Boris, they voted for effectively. That's why they can't cope with it in America with Donald Trump. Oh, we'll only get the hillbillies voting for him. No, he got loads of Hispanics and a lot of black males voting for him. But what a pity our politics is now going to get divided on either religious or the colour of your skin. That's not right. We'll go to hell in a handcart if we go down that route. Henry Ives, who lives in Birmingham, he's in her constituency. Thank you for clarifying that on Facebook. Henry says it was 597 votes. That's what she won by. Dead close. Jess Phillips is a bottle job. She should have resigned and done herself a lot of credit. She's being played by that cretin Starmer. So a quick question, Gaunty. Was Tommy Robinson right in his statements about rape gangs? And if he was, is he a political prisoner? I think he was right about the rape gangs, largely. What he wasn't right about was showing that film, because that was clear contempt of court. And what he wasn't right was where he tries to demonize all Muslims. Or it looks like that's what he's doing. I know, Tom. I've interviewed him loads of times. I haven't really got a major problem with him. He was getting a bit carried away with himself because of some of the people surrounding him. But he was just a normal bloke who just got fed up with what was happening to Luton. But that's the same thing. It's a fine line between that and being an idiot, isn't it? That's all I'd say. I said to his face, by the way, about the contempt. It's when I had my own radio station, Talk to Me Radio. He came into my studio. And that Canadian guy was behind him from Rebel News. And I said, is he going to pay your legal costs? And he said, what do you mean? I said, you're going to get hammered for doing what you're doing, showing this film about the young lad, because you were wrong. In a court of law, he was wrong. Anyway, that doesn't mean I hate him, because I don't. In fact, he can be charming company. Right, that's me finished. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm thinking of moving the show back till 6. I told somebody off the other day. They said, oh, you clash with Farage. Maybe you should do it at 6. And I poo-pooed him, but I've been thinking about it. But tomorrow I will do it at 6:30 or 7. But then I might go to 6. But I'll let you know. Don't forget, the best way to keep in touch, find out what's happening, is join my YouTube channel. It's free. Unless you want to buy a super sticker, and unless you want to become a member. That's 99p, I think. You can do whatever you want, but just get on the channel and get all your mates to get on the channel. It's going to help me, because this show is going to be huge. You want to be one of the first people who's on it, so you can say, I did it. That's what you want to say. 6 works, John, says Simon. Yeah, I think I might go to 6. Tony Hodgkinson on YouTube says, I don't care if he was wrong to show the film. It needed showing. Well, you should care, because now your hero's in prison, and what good's he doing there? See what I mean, Tony? We've all got to be a bit cleverer, including Tommy. It was ridiculous to show the film. Ridiculous. And I told him. But if you want to fall out with me over that, you can. The fact that I know him better than you, well, put to one side. I'll bow to your superior knowledge, Einstein. Just you've got to try and get a wider picture. Otherwise, you're going to end up being a lefty if you're not careful. All right. That's me done. I will come back tomorrow. I don't know what we're going to talk about tomorrow, but I'll let you know what time it's going to be earlier in the day. Good luck to Coventry. I've got to go, though, on soon. Tonight. Simon says, a judge told Tommy he shouldn't show it. He should have listened. Well, yeah, it wasn't just one judge. It was contempt of court. That's the point. It's one of the worst things you can do. You've just got to play the game. Tommy loves going to court. But Tommy, you've got to play by the rules on that level. Anyway, or be a martyr, wherever you want to be. Anyway, listen, that's me finished. If you've got kids, give them a kiss, give them a hug. Hey. Don't forget to tell them you love them. I'll see you tomorrow. Lovely talking to you. Do you like my picture today? I thought it was good. See ya.